All right, so today is day 247 of the 1 year chronological Bible plan, and we're going to be continuing on in Ezekiel. So let's get into it. Ezekiel 40:38. A room with a doorway was by the portico in each of the inner gateways, where the burnt offerings were washed. In the portico of the gateway were two tables on each side, on which the burnt offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings were slaughtered. By the outside wall of the portico of the gateway, near the steps at the entrance of the north gateway, were two tables, and on the other side of the steps were two tables. So there were four tables on one side of the gateway, and four on the other, 8 tables in all, on which the sacrifices were slaughtered. There were also four tables of dressed stone for the burnt offerings, each a cubit and a half long, a cubit and a half wide, and a cubit high, which is about 2 and 2/3 feet long and wide, and 21 inches high. On them were placed the utensils for slaughtering the burnt offerings and the other sacrifices, and double pronged hooks, each a handbreadth long, which is about 3.5 inches long, were attached to the wall all around. The tables were for the flesh of the offerings. The rooms for the priests. Outside the inner gate, with the inner court, were two rooms, one at the side of the north gate and facing south, and another at the side of the south gate facing north and facing north. He said to me, "The room facing south is for the priests who guard the temple, and the room facing north is for the priests who guard the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, who are the only Levites who may draw near to the Lord to minister before him." Then he measured the court. It was square, 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, and the altar was in front of the temple. The new temple. He brought me to the portico, to the temple, and measured the jambs of the portico. They were 5 cubits wide on either side. The width of the entrance was 14 cubits, which is about 25 feet, and its projecting walls were 3 cubits, which is about 5.25 feet wide on either side. The portico was 20 cubits wide, which is about 35 feet wide, and 12 cubits, which is about 21 feet from front to back. It was reached by a flight of stairs, and there were pillars on each side of the jambs. Ezekiel 41. The man brought me to the main hall and measured the jambs. The width of the jambs was 6 cubits on each side, which is about 11 feet. The entrance was 10 cubits wide, which is about 18 feet, and the projecting walls on each side of it were 5 cubits wide, which is about 8.75 feet. He also measured the main hall. It was 40 cubits long and 20 cubits wide, which is about 70 feet long and 35 feet wide. Then he went into the inner sanctuary and measured the jambs of the entrance. Each each was 2 cubits wide, which is about 3.5 feet wide. The entrance was 6 cubits wide, and the projecting walls on each side of it were 7 cubits wide, which is about 12 feet. And he measured the length of the inner sanctuary. It was 20 cubits, and its width was 20 cubits across the end of the main hall. He said to me, "This is the most holy place." Then he measured the wall of the temple. It was 6 cubits thick, and each side room around the temple was 4 cubits wide, which is about 7 feet. The side rooms were on three levels, one above another, 30 on each level. There were ledges all around the wall of the temple to serve as supports for the side rooms, so that the supports were not inserted into the wall of the temple. The side rooms all around the temple were wider at each successive level. Successive level. The structure surrounding the temple was built in ascending stages so that the rooms widened as one went upward. A stairway went up from the lowest floor to the top floor through the middle floor. I saw that the temple had a raised base all around it, forming the foundation of the side rooms. It was the length of the rod 6 long cubits. 6 long cubits. The outer wall of the side rooms was 5 cubits thick. The open area between the side rooms of the temple and the priest's room was 20 cubits wide all around the temple. There were entrances to the side rooms for the open area, one on the north and another on the south, and the base adjoining the open area was 5 cubits wide all around. The building facing the temple courtyard on the west side was 70 cubits wide, which is about 123 feet. The wall of the building was 5 cubits thick all around, and its length was 90 cubits, which is about 158 feet. Then he measured the temple. It was 100 cubits long, which is 175 feet long, and the temple courtyard and the building with its walls were also 100 cubits long. The width of the temple courtyard on the east, including the front of the temple, was 100 cubits. Then he measured the length of the building facing the courtyard at the rear of the temple, including its galleries on each side. It was 100 cubits. The main hall, the inner sanctuary, and the portico facing the court, as well as the thresholds and the narrow windows and galleries around the three of them, everything beyond and including the threshold was covered with wood. The floor, the wall up to the windows, and the windows were covered. In the space above the outside of the entrance to the inner sanctuary on the walls, at regular intervals, all around the inner and outer sanctuary were carved cherubim and palm trees. Palm trees alternated with cherubim. Each cherub had two faces: the face of a human being toward the palm tree on one side, and the face of a lion toward the palm tree on the other. On the other. They were carved all around the whole temple, from the floor to the area above the entrance. Cherubim and palm trees were carved on the wall of the main hall. The main hall had a rectangular door frame, and the one at the most holy place was similar. There was a wooden altar 3 cubits high, which is about 5¼ feet high, and 2 cubits square, which is its corners, its base, and its sides were of wood. The man said to me, "This is the table that is before the Lord." Both the main hall and the most holy place had double doors. Each door had 2 leaves, 2 hinged leaves for each door. And on the doors of the main hall were carved cherubim and palm trees like those carved on the walls. And there was a wooden overhang on the front of the portico. On the side walls of the portico were narrow windows with palm trees carved on each side. The side rooms of the temple also had overhangs. Ezekiel 42, the rooms for the priests. Then the man led me northward into the outer court, and brought me to the rooms opposite the temple courtyard and opposite the outer wall on the north side. The building whose door faced north was 100 cubits long and 50 cubits wide, which is about 175 feet long and 88 feet wide, both in the section 20 cubits, which is about 35 feet from the inner court, and in the section opposite the pavement of the outer court. Gallery faced gallery at the 3 levels. In front of the rooms was an inner passageway 10 cubits wide and 100 cubits long, which is about 18 feet wide and 175 feet long. Their doors were on the north. Now the upper rooms were narrower, for the galleries took more space from them than from the rooms on the lower and middle floors of the building. The rooms on the top floor had no pillars as the courts had, so they were smaller in floor space than those on the lower and middle floors. There was an outer wall parallel to the rooms and the outer court. It extended in front of the rooms for 50 cubits, while the row of rooms on the side next to the outer court was 50 cubits long. The row on the side nearest the sanctuary was 100 cubits long. The lower rooms had an entrance on the east side as one enters them from the outer court. On the south side, along the length of the wall of the outer court, adjoining the temple courtyard and opposite the outer wall, were rooms with a passageway in front of them. These were like the rooms on the north. They had the same length and width, with similar exits and dimensions. Similar to the doorways on the north were doorways of the rooms of the south on the south. There was a doorway at the beginning of the passageway that was parallel to the corresponding wall extending eastward, by which one enters the rooms. Then he said to me, "The north and south rooms facing the temple courtyard are the priests' rooms, where the priests who approach the Lord will eat the most holy offerings. There they will put the most holy offerings, the grain offerings, the sin offerings, and the guilt offerings, for the place is holy. Once the priests enter the holy precinct, they are not to go into the outer court until they leave behind the garments in which they minister, for these are holy. They are to put on other clothes. They are to put on other clothes before they go near the places that are for the people." When he had finished measuring what was inside the temple area, he led me out by the east gate and measured the area all around. He measured the east side with the measuring rod. It was 500 cubits, which is about 875 feet. He measured the north side. It was 500 cubits by the measuring rod. He measured the south side. It was 500 cubits by the measuring rod. Then he turned to the west side and measured. It was 500 cubits by the measuring rod. So he measured the area on all 4 sides. It had a wall around it, 500 cubits long, 500 cubits wide, to separate the holy from the common. Ezekiel 43, God's glory returns to the temple. Then the man brought me to the gate facing east, and I saw the glory of God, and I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roar of rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. The vision I saw was like the vision I had seen when he came to destroy the city, and like the visions I had seen by the Kibar River, and I fell face down. The glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gate facing east. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. While the man was standing beside me, I heard someone speaking to me from inside the temple. He said, "Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place for the soles of my feet. This is where I live among the Israelites forever. The people of Israel will never again defile my holy name, neither they nor their kings, by their prostitution and their funeral offerings for their kings at their death. When they placed their threshold next to my threshold, and their doorposts beside my doorposts, with only a wall between me and them, they defiled my holy name by their detestable practices. So I destroyed them in my anger. Now let them put away from me their prostitution and the funeral offerings for their kings, and I will live among them forever. Son of man, describe the temple to the people of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their sins. Let them consider its perfection, and if they are ashamed of all they have done, make known to them the design of the temple, its arrangement, its exits, and entrances, its whole design, and all its regulations and laws. Write these down before them so that they may be faithful to its design and follow all its regulations. This is the law of the temple. All the surrounding area on top of the mountain will be most holy. Such is the law of the temple. The great altar restored. These are the measurements of the altar in long cubits. That cubit being a cubit and a handbreadth. Its gutter, so a cubit is about 21 inches. Its gutter is a cubit deep and a cubit wide, with a rim of one span, which is about 11 inches around the edge. And this is the height of the altar. From the gutter on the ground up to the lower edge that goes around the altar, it is 2 cubits high, and the ledge is a cubit wide, which is about 3.5 feet high and 1 3/4 feet wide. From this lower edge to the upper ledge that goes around the altar, it is 4 cubits high, and that ledge is also a cubit wide, which is about 7 feet high and 1 3/4 feet wide. Above that, the altar hearth is 4 cubits high, and 4 horn projects upward from the hearth. The altar hearth is square, 12 cubits long, which is about 21 feet long, and 12 cubits wide. The upper ledge also is square, 14 cubits long, which is about 25 feet long, and 14 cubits wide. All around the altar is a gutter of 1 cubit with a rim of a half a cubit, which is about 11 inches. The steps of the altar face east. Then he said to me, Son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says. These will be the regulations for sacrificing burnt offerings and splashing blood against the altar when it is built. You are to give a young bull as a sin offering to the Levitical priests of the family of Zadok who come near to minister before me, declares the sovereign Lord. You are to take some of its blood and put it on the 4 horns of the altar and on the 4 corners of the upper ledge and all around the rim, and so purify the altar and make atonement for it. You are to take the bull for the sin offering and burn it in the designated part of the temple area outside the sanctuary. On the second day, you are to offer a male goat without defect for a sin offering, and the altar is to be purified as it was purified with the bull. When you have finished purifying it, you are to offer a young bull and a ram from the flock, both without defect. You are to offer them before the Lord, and the priests are to sprinkle salt on them and sacrifice them as a burnt offering to the Lord. For 7 days you are to provide a male goat daily for a sin offering. You are also to provide a young bull and a ram from the flock, both without defect. For 7 days they are to make atonement for the altar and cleanse it. Thus they will dedicate it. At the end of these days, and the 8th day on, the priests are to present your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar. Then I will accept you, declares the sovereign Lord. And that is day 247.